Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to sunny Cornwall, or virtually, at least anyway. I don't know whether everybody can hear me, because I certainly couldn't hear any music, and I saw quite a few comments saying the same. Can anybody hear me? Perhaps you could put it in the chat box. Good, I can see some can hear me. So we'll be doing Q&A at the end of the session. So if you could just preface any questions you have with the normal capital QQ and a question mark at the end, and then we'll deal with any questions at the end. So, and in terms of resources, I think Emily or Gabby is going to put a list in the chat box to a full list of resources that is in effective pricing. I must say, I hadn't realised until I had a session with Mark and Sarah last week that you can actually download all these resources in the effective pricing systems approach to value pricing course online now. So if you go, we'll have a look at that later actually, and then you can see an example. So introduction to me, as I say, I live in sunny Cornwall, and you can see on the map behind me a picture of Cornwall. For those of you not in the UK, it's the furthest southwest of Great Britain, with the famous landmark Land's End. Next stop across the Atlantic, of course, is the United States. So I've been in accounting since 1975, and I was reflecting that on when I was doing this presentation, preparing for it, that my first job was in 1972, which is now 50 years ago. Quite unbelievable. And that was just as a labourer in a factory where my father was the general manager, and he offered jobs to myself and a couple of pals before we went off to university. So my career then started with a firm in Manchester, which became part of Touche Ross, now known as Deloitte. And after I qualified, I went off to work in Kenya. Always wanted to work abroad. Turned down job offers in Bermuda, Barbados, and the Bahamas to go to Kenya. And it's certainly a beautiful country. If you've never been, thoroughly recommend it. Really nice people in the main as well. So I came back from Kenya, spent a couple of years in Touche Ross London office, and then went off to Grant Thornton as a senior manager and potential partner assessment course. And I decided actually I didn't want to be part of a big firm anymore, and I wanted to start my own firm. So I literally upped sticks and took my family from the south in the Thames Valley up to Cheshire and started my own practice from the back bedroom. And that practice went from nothing to, I think we reached about 1.6 million after about 15 years with 3 offices. And we built that practice on a training seminar I went on with a guy called Chris Fredrickson, who had a course called How to Build $1 Million Practice in 10 Years. And the resource, just to show how old it was, the resource was in cassette tape form. So I say the world's changed a lot since then. I sold Rennie Evans Chartered Accountants, my business, to Bentley Jennison in October 2016. Became a partner in them for a few years, and then left when they got taken over themselves by the Tennant Group, and started Prospero Accounting in Manchester. So Prospero Accounting is actually virtual and has been within probably a year of starting. So we all work from home when we're not at clients or we're not meeting up, which now includes 3 ladies in the Philippines. When the pandemic came, it didn't really make a lot of difference to us because nothing changed other than we couldn't go and see clients. So we were one of the lucky ones, I think. And we don't have all the headaches of commuting, which is in the UK is pretty bad. I first met Mark and Sarah when I was looking back, it was in June 2014 when I became a member of AVN. And I suppose that was really the start of my journey on value pricing, because I'd always trained with the big accountancy firms. I'd always had this assertive mentality about pricing anyway, because the big firms, as you probably all know, are not afraid of expressing their value in prices that they want to charge their clients. But when I became a member of AVN, Mark Wickersham and Steve Pike were doing obviously the training, or the initial training. And one of the services that they was recommending, I think particularly Mark, was about incorporation. And it really resonated with me, because I actually had a client which was a husband and wife partnership, and they did wedding venues and were very successful, obviously pre-pandemic. So in 2015, I took them through the process of incorporating their partnership into a limited company, and it was a very successful for them, saving them a huge amount of taxation rates for a partnership in the UK, because they're personal, can be as high now as 45%, whereas a limited company is only 19%. And back in those days, when you incorporated, you could also create goodwill on incorporation, which effectively was a tax-free credit to your director's loan account. So the client was exceedingly happy with the arrangement, and I went through the process of value pricing with them, and the AVN recommended at the time was 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. This client went for a 4-star arrangement, of which there was a good chunk which was contingent, dependent on them, on me being successful getting their goodwill on incorporation agreed with HM Revenue and Customs, which it was, and I got a fee out of it of £21,667. So that really woke my eyes up to value pricing and what the possibilities were. However, I'm afraid I have to hold my hands up, and I didn't really do much about it. So I didn't adopt systems, and I didn't adopt value pricing. I suppose stuff got in the way. So December 2018, I think Mark by then had well left AVN, and he was regularly mailing me about various courses, and he sent me one about, he was doing a course on price consulting, which I really liked the sound of, and it really resonated with me. So it was a year's course. So I enrolled on that in December 18. And it was an excellent course, excellent systems, excellent resources. And I still use that today. And it underpins a lot of what Mark teaches in his various value pricing. Mark's a big, he talks a lot about not being a note taker or an action taker. So I definitely took action this time and developed a power pricing manual based on the resources that Mark gave us, the brochure and the systems. And then once the price consulting course had finished, I then joined the VPA in December 19, which I must say has been one of the best decisions I've made in a long time. So I've been members of lots and lots of networks, and I'll just hasten to add that Mark's not paying me to say this, but I think Mark's Value Pricing Academy is probably about the best that I've been involved with in terms of the resources and the training and the value he keeps adding to it year on year. So I first introduced value pricing and menu pricing with the introduction of payroll. And that was in April 20, which was the start of the UK payroll year, which goes from April 20 to March 21. That would be a full year. So I rearranged all of our pricing with our clients, and we didn't have a lot. We probably had just under 10 clients with payroll, with fees of about 20,000. And it was skewed because there were 3 big ones in there. But I was conscious that we were definitely under invoicing on payroll. Our arrangements, they were fixed price, but they were based on, I think we got it up to £3.70 per employee per month. And then we used to have to add on charges for leavers and starters, and it was very messy. So I listened to Mark's training on payroll, and we went down the route of writing to all the clients with a renewal letter using Mark's wording and systems. and I actually got a price increase of over 70% with not one client dropping out. So I thought, well, this has worked better than I could have dreamed of. So I then decided that we were going to introduce value pricing and menu pricing for all of our services. And of course, it was made easier with the introduction of effective pricing. So prior to that, Mark had a software package called cloud pricing, which I think even he would agree was a bit clunky. So when effective pricing came out and he announced that for value pricing academy members, it was going to be free, it was a real bonus. So how I got started with effective pricing, first thing I would say, whatever services you're providing, you have to have it as an excellent standard, because if you're not providing an excellent service, trying to get moved to value pricing and menu pricing will be very difficult. So I did all of the EP training, the effective pricing training on Mark's course, the systems approach to value pricing. And for anybody, I'm just going to share my screen, I hope, if the technology works. So this is Mark's portal here, and you can see the top one there is effective pricing. So it's all video-based training, and I mentioned about the resources are there. So if you get started with effective pricing, if you click on that, not only does the video open, but you can see in downloads, if you hover over that, there's the effective pricing onboarding guide, and you can download all of the resources actually within the software. So again, if you're struggling to get going with effective pricing, I'd strongly recommend that you go through all of the training. You can see at the top there, it says 55% complete for me. That's not reality, because I attended most of it live, and then I've gone back and looked at some of them subsequently. And I also used all Mark's existing pricing models that he very kindly provided in the effective pricing software. I'm a big believer that, not to reinvent the wheel, and Mark has created models both for the UK and for the US. I'm not sure whether he's done it for South Africa, because I know there's other members of Value Pricing Academy, certainly, who are based in South Africa. So if I just, hopefully you can see effective pricing now. So you can see on there my effective pricing dashboard. So some of these models on here are some of the ones that Mark put on initially. So accounting records, cleanup work, bookkeeping, business startup, cloud accounting setup, financial forecasting, corporation. These are all ones that Mark did. But then I've taken some of these, and partly where I've been asked by a client to do a proposal. So I've taken some of those and cloned them to produce my own model. So you can see I've taken the bookkeeping one there to do purchase ledger, and that was for one of our largest clients who was their purchase ledger was in a mess, to be honest, with lack of staff resources. They had high turnover and they wanted some help. And then I've set up other ones down below. So Prospero are registered auditors. So I can't have to say that I'm not a great fan of auditing, but unfortunately some of my biggest clients need audits. So I've retained my audit authorization, which also means that I occasionally get requested to do an independent accountant's report for Innovate UK grant claims. In fact, I've just had one in the last week. So I decided that I would do a pricing model for that. Another client asked me to do an internal controls review. They had a bank fraud. So I wrote a model for internal controls review. And you can see there's quite a few down here. Research and development claim, again in the UK, research and development is one of the few tax schemes that is authorised by HMRC these days. So again, clients wanting R&D claims, so we've written a pricing model for that. And each of these are, I say, the ones that from Mark are pretty much as they came out of the tin. So if I for instance wanted to change them, you can go up into settings at the top and then go into model management, and then you can view any one of these. And if you decide you want to use one as a base, all you've got to do is click on clone it, and it will create a model, literally a replication, and you can see at the end it's got the day and the date and the time afterwards. So you can then go and change that as you want, as you see fit. If I just go back to the models, so in bookkeeping, you can also go in and edit them. So we didn't do very much editing, I have to say. We basically took it out, what Mark had provided. The only thing we did do is we edited some of the questions, so which were really about things like what accounting software do you use. So we put the ones that we wanted. So Xero is the one that we use and we get all our clients to use. And you can see some of the other ones there. We have a lot of clients in the UK, particularly in the niche that I serve, which is engineering and metal manufacturing. They use Sage 50 accounts. So we put that on there. Sage Business Cloud is Sage's offering to compete with Xero and QuickBooks. So we put that on there. And then the usual ones at the bottom, with Xero being the default. And then similarly, what type of business are you? Again, we took the basic list and added to it. So you can see manufacturing and engineering is our niche. So we put that in, and the value assigned to it, that's standard 1. So that means that basically the price is just 100% of whatever the price is. If you go for one of the others, so say in an area that we're not particularly involved in, so bars, cafes and restaurants, or lawyers, we multiply the price by 1.2. That's pretty much where we took it out of the tin. And I think with effective pricing to get going, you want to basically use the models that Mark has already provided, assuming, of course, they fit in with the service lines that you're providing. I know a lot of the other providers out there, the likes of Go Proposal, Practice Ignition, they tend to combine all of the services in one proposal, whereas effective pricing, you're providing separate proposals. And I know there's pros and cons for doing both. Mark's, I know, a big believer that if you price separately, then you get bigger fees, and I think it's probably less complicated. I know when I've been through some of these proposals with clients, by the time they've just been through one, I think they've had enough. So to combine 3 or 4 different services in one proposal would be too much for a lot of clients. And I think also the maths also then gets very difficult if you're trying to do it in one pricing model. So I suppose the big thing was how I used the bookkeeping pricing model in effective pricing to win a virtual management assignment worth £31,908. So this was an existing client, been a client actually for many years. So they were a client of mine in my original firm, Rennie Chartered Accountants. They followed me through my 3-year period with Bentley Jenison, and then when I left Bentley Jenison and started Prospero, they followed me into Prospero. And they are a firm of quantity surveyors and cost construction consultants. More recently, they've formed a holding company because one of the guys was retiring, and they did a deal to buy him out by the Shares Act through a holding company, and then they started another company. They brought somebody into the business and gave them a minority shareholding. So there's now one holding company and 2 trading companies. we've already been acting for this client probably for in excess of 15 years, and we do their year-end accounts. The main original trading company, we also do their audit. It's below the audit threshold in the UK, but because they were multiple offices in the UK, the directors in the other offices didn't trust the directors in Manchester, and they wanted somebody to independently audit the figures, because the accounting was always done in Manchester. So, and although one of those offices in Glasgow in Scotland has since closed, they've retained the audit. So, and the fees that we had off that client are already fairly substantial. We were earning, well, for this year, we've quoted 17,920 to do the audit, 3 sets of accounts, corporation tax, company secretarial. We also allow for ad hoc business advisory where they do queries. The company had an excellent in-house accountant who had come up through the business, and we'd actually helped trained. They were using Sage 50 accounts in the past, and we helped them transition to cloud accounting in Xero, and helped Debs, the accountant, with all the training with Xero and Receipt Bank being linked. Anyway, so this opportunity to provide virtual financial management came around because Debs decided to leave. She wanted to go and join her husband, who ran his own little building company, and she was going to join him as his building assistant, the most glamorous building assistant you would ever see. But her salary was 42,000 a year, plus obviously she had the auto enrollment pension, employers' national insurance, and they also had a private medical scheme. So the cost of her to the company was not insignificant. And again, Mark mentions a lot in his training in terms of value pricing and menu pricing about you having an anchor. So an overall cost, which makes the prices that you're eventually quoting seem relatively small. So the client had actually sent out an advertisement on, I think, on LinkedIn and other job boards for the position, and they'd asked my advice about salaries, and I said, well, it's a very, very difficult market at the moment in the UK for recruitment. I think, from what I understand, it's the same in the US and Canada. So I said, even if you can get somebody of the right level, you're going to be paying top price to get someone. So I'd worked out for them with all of the additional costs of national insurance and pensions. It was probably going to cost them in excess of 47,000, plus, of course, they were going to have to pay for recruitment fees and private medical costs on top. So that became my anchor for being able to quote to them. So I then took the bookkeeping pricing model and went through it with them. Now, if you're a member of the VPA, then obviously you've got access to quite a lot of resources where Mark has done training on bookkeeping, which reminds me, and I know I was supposed to do this earlier, but if I just stop share for a minute, I was going to do a poll because I was interested to find out how many of the people we've got here are VPA members using effective pricing, or not using it, or are just an effective pricing user, or just researching. So I'm just going to launch this poll quickly so we can just see. Okay, so we've got 81% people have participated, so I'll just end the poll there. So hopefully you can also, I'll share the results. and you can see that 27% of people are VPA members using effective pricing, and there's 38% who are not using it. Now, whether that's because they've just not got around to it or they're using a competitor product. When we were having the discussion with Mark and Sarah, Mark didn't have the information to hand, so he might find this quite interesting as well. And you can see there are 13 people out of the 45 that have answered who are just researching. So I'll just close that down. So going back to the effective pricing model. So as I say, we just took the bookkeeping quote, bookkeeping pricing model and used that. So in Mark's VPA training on bookkeeping, he provided all the resources so that there are, Mark's a big believer in you having a brochure, because it basically helps you to demonstrate that you are the expert in the area and builds the value of what you're offering. So we'd taken Mark's suggested brochures and we'd had those produced in-house by one of the girls in the Philippines who does all the work. She's the expert on marketing. She produces it in Canva and ends up producing a very good quality brochure. So I used the brochure as the selling product. And unfortunately, I'm not allowed to show you the brochures because not everybody's a member of the VPA. So, and they are just limited to the VPA members. But I have to say the brochures are excellent. Again, we didn't have to change much of the wording in that, just took it largely as Mark had written it and just change it for our graphics and our own branding. But if you then go into the pricing model, you'll see some of the information that's there in the brochures is also reflected in the pricing model, because the choices are shown in the brochure and all of the options within each of the choices. So I'm just going to stop this again in a minute because I just want to load something else. A test client, so you don't actually see this whole list of my clients. Give me a tick. Right. So here's client set up as test. You can see all the various tests I've done in here. And at the top, you'll see there's one I did yesterday called bookkeeping. So if I go in and edit that, so literally I was assuming that this test was going to be for the financial year ended 30th of June 23. So we were taking over their bookkeeping from the 1st of July 2022, and you can see it's virtual financial management. So we've changed the name from bookkeeping to virtual financial management, and that's how our brochure is reflected as well. So you're basically going through and asking a series of questions. Is your bookkeeping up to date? You can see there that I've clicked on 70 to 120 sales invoices a year, and it's the drop down is there. I can't remember whether we actually extended this or not, but we've assumed that they're going to be on Xero as our cloud software of choice. What type of business are you on? Again, it's for our niche manufacturing and engineering. I've assumed they've got 4 divisions. A lot of manufacturing companies will have separate divisions. I've assumed they're registered for value-added tax and they operate a sales ledger. Just one bank account with a deposit account and a credit card, and that they need payroll journals posting, and that they have foreign currency. And this is something that we've added, and we added this in because of the small group that I was quoting for. So we now say you can have 1, 2 or 3 intercompany accounts, because they will always need reconciling to make sure that they agree. And then just going on to the other things that they might want. So do you want us to account for divisions? Yes. How often do you want us to do your bookkeeping? So in the client that I quoted for, we were actually doing the bookkeeping weekly because they want to be bang up to date. I think a lot of these questions are actually now redundant. Scanning your records, working at your premises, or do you want to collect and deliver your paperwork? Because we do everything via receipt bank, so it's all online. How frequently do you want a review meeting? Again, our client actually chose that they wanted to do it quarterly. And then which of the 3 packages is most appropriate for your business? So again, you've got the choice of premium, full, or entry. And a lot of people say, well, how do they know what they want at this point? Well, it's because you've run through the brochure with them, and that details what is in each of the various options. So if you move on, you can see then you've got the full list of everything that's provided in each of the 3 packages, premium, full, or essential. And green tick means it's included, red cross means it's not included. So all of this is set out in the brochure, so you've got almost a replica page of this. So the client is aware of what's going on, and the client's already selected, so you can actually, if you click on fixed price, it will then actually reveal what the price is per month. So you can see there, you've got 12 payments of $9.25 is the one that they had chosen. And then you notice at the top right, you've got a box that says BR, which stands for behavioral rewards. So if you click on that, it opens another screen. And we've got questions that we've edited some of these. So will you scan all your purchase invoice and expenses with DEX brackets receipt bank? And they say yes. So they get, and you can see if you hover over the I there, if you do this, we reduce our price by 10%. To be honest, I think we ought to make that mandatory, because not having invoices and receipts scanned by something like DEX or Auto Entry or HubDoc, one of the many others that are around, would make life very, very difficult. We asked them, will you keep all your expenses on a business credit card? That makes life a lot easier. We act for a subsidiary of an Italian parent company near Venice, and we do everything for them, their bookkeeping, everything. And they had 2 salesmen who were traveling around, well, pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, traveling around the UK and Ireland, and incurring lots of expenses and using a company credit card. And because they were photograph everything on their mobile phones and submitting them via DEX, we were then able to produce a report out of Receipt Bank, which would link back to the credit card statement, and we would email that at the end of the month. Once we'd reconciled it and got all the receipts, we'd email the report over to Italy for them to approve, and it contained all the hyperlinks to copies of the invoices and receipts. So, really powerful software. And we asked the question, will you refer us to 3 other businesses like yours? And if we do that, they get a discount. So we move on then. And then you can move on to popular add-ons. So this client has also asked us to maintain their fixed asset register on Xero, which is relatively straightforward, to be honest, as long as the postings are done in the right place, because if you post an asset in Xero to plant and machinery or to fixtures and fittings, it automatically creates a draft entry in the fixed asset register. But and you move on from there, and then you can see you've got your payment plan, and you can actually go on from there and do a check at the end if you want. So that just gives you an idea of how we price this up. So we priced each individual company separately rather than trying to price on a group basis, because I think, again, we would have got a much lesser fee if we'd done it on a group basis, and it would have been more complicated. So I'm a big believer. I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. And we also did the client also, because Deb's the in-house accountant was leaving, she did all their payroll, and she did their payroll on Sage Payroll. So we agreed with the client actually that we would take over the payroll, and we did separate proposals for that. Again, one for the two trading companies. The holding company doesn't employ anybody. So that was all part of the total value of 31,908. So the client was more than happy, because he was now being presented with us doing all his accounting and bookkeeping and reporting, and he didn't have to worry about Deb's replacement, their quality, or whether they were going to be off sick or on holiday. There was always somebody there. They did ask the question who was going to be doing the work, and we said it will be a team approach, so you don't have to rely on just one person. And another resource that I convinced them with, which I certainly can't let you have a copy, but I think I can just show it to you, is one of Mark's star pupils for the Value Pricing Academy has been Reza Huda, and he's now gone off and set up on his own. And Reza did a Zoom session like this called How to Multiply Your Fees by 10 times, and it was largely about going in and providing virtual financial management, virtual financial office service, and even a virtual financial director. And one of the resources that he produced, which we took on board, was a comparison of the virtual financial office versus hiring in-house. So if I just quickly show you that, again, I just used it to demonstrate to the client the different aspects of that, of having a full in-house team versus a virtual finance office, or indeed employing a bookkeeper for so many days a week. And of course, for most small businesses, SMEs at the lower end of the size, they can't afford to have a full in-house team. You know, they might have one accountant or one bookkeeper, and they certainly can't afford to have a full range, where with the virtual finance office that we're providing, they have the full range. So apologies, I'm not allowed to let you have a copy of that, but I thought I would just show you. But again, it was very useful to be able to sell the service to the client. Just going back to effective pricing, and if I just share my screen again, sorry about all this chopping and changing. If you go into model management and you wanted to change bookkeeping, for instance, it's really easy to do. All you do is click on edit, and for instance, if I wanted to change that name to virtual financial management, if I could spell, would help. It's as easy as that. So save and continue. If I wanted to add what type of business you're in or change any of those, I noticed when I was doing it, for some reason, I've got property dealer down at 0.8, and I have not a clue why that is, but I certainly wouldn't be looking to act for a property dealer for 80% of the value of what we would normally quote. So I will change that while we're in to 1.2. So I know next to nothing about property dealers. So you can see how easy it is to change this. And you can see at the bottom, for some reason, it's now defaulted to bars, cafes and restaurants, whereas actually I want it to default to manufacturing and engineering. And you can basically go through and edit this as much as you, or as little as you want. But I'm a big believer, as I said earlier, in actually getting to grips and using the models that are already there. So I'll just take that to the end. And you can see, oh, this is an interesting one, because a lot of people say, well, how do you know your prices are right? So when you've got a model, you can actually do it as a dummy in this pricing model you've got. So you can see here, if you wanted to go into it, you can say, well, let's say it's going to be 71 to 120 invoices. Let's say they're actually not using Xero, they're using Sage 50 accounts, and they're not in manufacturing, they're lawyers. I hate dealing with lawyers. They don't have any divisions, they're registered for VAT, yes, operate sales ledger, they're solicitors, so let's say they've got 4 bank accounts, client accounts, and all the rest of it. Bank accounts. Now you can see at the top there, you've got to calculate. So you can just, if you click on calculate there, it's starting with your base price, which is how many sales invoices per month do you have, and then it's starting to ratchet up the price. So because this client is going to use Sage 50 accounts, that's ratcheting up the price by 10%. If I took it back to Xero, you'll see, and I press calculate, the price goes back down to 1,800, because that's my preferred software, and makes it easier for us. If they weren't lawyers, if they were a manufacturing company, engineering business, and I press calculate, again, the price has gone back down. If I said they got 4 divisions and press calculate, it does nothing. And there's a reason for that, because the multiple of 4 divisions comes in later on the reporting aspect. So, but you're recording that number at that point. So the fact they're registered for VAT increases the price. If I put no, press calculate, again, the price goes down. Do they operate a sales ledger? Yes. So it's a bit more complicated. If I click no, calculate, you can see you can play with this as much as you want to see. If you were, for instance, had a prospective client, you could have a look with what you think that the client would stand and what the effective pricing is going to come out with. So this is quite useful, particularly when you're setting up new models, or if you're moving to effective pricing for the first time and you want to see what are the effects of taking your clients from your existing fee arrangements to effective pricing. And certainly this is something we used on the payroll when we were converting from our original arrangements to effective pricing. Right, I think I have covered most of the stuff I wanted to cover. So I seem to have got through that fairly quickly. So shall we go to Q&A? Emily, if you can hear me, have you been through and got any questions that have come up?
Hi, Rennie. Yeah, we've just got 2 short questions. Martin Markovitz missed the first few minutes, so he asked, how long have you been with VPA?
With the Value Pricing Academy. So I joined the Value Pricing Academy in December 2019. So it's what, 2.5 years. And I was saying, Martin, that I've been a member of many different accounting networks. I was a member of Results Accounting Systems with Paul Dunn back in the day when he was still in running that business. So a lot of you may have heard through B1G1. I then went into the follow-up business for that called RAN1, and I was a member of the RAN1 Consulting Group. We are members of the 2020 Innovation Group, which is I have to say is quite good as well, although very different. And then, of course, I was a member of AVN, the Added Value Network, when Mark and Steve Pipe were there. I left AVN probably not long before I joined Mark's Value Pricing Academy. And I was saying to those who were here at the time, and I'm not being paid to say this, but I think Mark's Value Pricing Academy is the best network that I've been involved in with the best training, the best resources. Very, very good.
Okay, got another question from Chris Jordan, who says, is there a USD translation? So I think he's saying, can we change the currency? So would you be able to show how we do that in the software?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure. There obviously is, but obviously
you can change it in your customization settings at the in your local preferences in your customization area in the settings, if you know where that is to show.
I don't know. So that'll be in here somewhere, won't it? In the
Yeah.
It's in my profile.
I think it'd be theme and design.
Right.
And there it is on the localization.
Oh yeah, display currency. So if you're based in the US, obviously you'd set it to US dollars or Canadian dollars, or if in South Africa to rand. Obviously you can personalize it. We've uploaded our logo there, and you can personalize it to the extent of getting your colors to agree to the actual numerical color reference. So that's ours for whatever our color of orange is. So you can personalize it a lot, basically, even down to the number formatting, which is obviously different. Certainly between Europe and here, they tend to use the decimal point to separate. In that example, between they would have the full stop after the 9 instead of a comma. I'm not sure what the formatting is in the United States or Canada, but so yeah.
Okay, we've got a question from Nicola Devison, who says, you provided a fee reduction for 3 referrals. How do you manage this?
To be honest, we've never had a referral through effective pricing when we've given a proposal. So it's a good question, because we haven't got a system in place to cope with it. So I'm afraid I don't know whether anybody else in the audience has got a system in place, or if they can contribute. Well, no. So I would imagine if a client has referred you to somebody and you take them on as a new client for your business, and we always ask the question about where they found us from. So was it through our marketing on LinkedIn or Facebook, or has it been a referral, and if so, from whom? So if we then found it was a referral, I suppose we would just give the client a credit. One of the big things that I took on board from my days with AVN with Mark and Steve Pike was putting all clients onto Go Cardless, which I have to say has totally and utterly changed my life. So we don't have any debtors now. In fact, clients are paying in advance. So if we've got a client who's given us a referral and we've got to give them back whatever the referral fee is, then we would just have to go into Go Cardless and amend the direct debit for their next payment. But yeah, so I suppose our capture point would be when we ask a client or a potential client what their point of introduction to us was, and they say it was through ABC Limited, that's when we would give the referral fee.
Okay, good. We've got a question from Farron Adamson, which I might be able to answer as well. It says, does Mark have a person dedicated to helping with effective pricing if we get stuck? So we do have an email address. If you email support@Wickersham, Sarah will help you with any queries that you have. And within the software, there is also a help icon, and you can find most answers under there or send a direct message to one of us within the app there as well. And we do also have a Facebook group called Value Pricing with Mark Wickersham. And if you have any questions, you can leave a question about the software in there, tag Mark or myself, Emily Cross, or Gabby Wickersham, or Sarah Cross. Tag one of us and we can answer the question for you that in there as well. So that's who to reach out to if you need any help with defective pricing. Next question we have is from, I don't know the name other than it's JP Financial Solutions. And they've said, can you speak more to where/how you entered the pricing values?
Well, the pricing values is just an accumulation depending on the answers to the questions, as I demonstrated in the software. So if I go back to the pricing model which is now, you can see it's changed on there to virtual financial management. Probably the
share your screen again, Rennie.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. Thank you. So you can see the screen now. So virtual financial management, I was about to say, probably the logo.
I think we've got your desktop, Rennie, not the software.
Oh, right, beg your pardon. Right, got it now. So as I say, virtual financial, we could probably do with upgrading the logo, which at the moment is showing as an abacus, which is probably not in line with the name of the service. But so if you go in again, go into edit, and then go into review at the end, you can see then, depending on your answers to the questions, it will then dictate the price. So now you can go in and change all the pricing if you want. So you can go back to expressing price. Sorry, pricing parameter, I think it is in here, and you can change all the pricing if you want. But we just tended to look at it and say, is it reasonable? And if it was reasonable, then we made very few changes. But that's where you would check what the answers to the questions was doing to the price. And just to add to Emily's answer to the last question about support, I've used it quite a bit over the while I've been using effective pricing, and I have to say it's very responsive and very good. Occasionally they have to send stuff off to the developers if there's a slight bug in the system, but it usually back within a couple of days.
Okay, next question is from Peter Conifal, who says, we're experiencing challenges with business owners and staff persistently entering in personal transactions, legitimate transactions, but with errors. We're considering adding this error cleanup as its own scope factor, e.g. each personal or intercorporate transaction receives a fixed fee of $10 to $50. So I'm guessing he's asking for your opinion on that.
Well, there is a specific model for cleanup, isn't there? So I suppose it depends on the extent of the cleanup. So if you look at model management, or is it? Yeah, there's cleanup right down there at the bottom. So you can do a separate quote for cleanup. I think if it's more clients and some of their staff with a consistent problem, it's more about training, I would have thought. So because otherwise the problem is going to continue. So we do provide training to some of our clients. Our biggest client, which is the in the UK. It's a non-for-profit charity. It's a housing association, so they provide housing to the less advantaged, particularly those with enduring mental health problems and suffering from substance abuse, whether it's alcohol or drugs. So they provide them with short-term accommodation, 6 months tenancies, but they have all sorts of problems with their accounting, and they have a high turnover of account staff as well, so they get themselves into a bit of a mess. So in fact, that cleanup for purchase ledger was specifically for them. But we've then, for that particular client, we've also done a fair bit of online training in how to put things together. So when we were doing the year-end accounts, they seem to have I don't know why, but they seem to have a mental block about putting a fixed asset register together on Excel. So we've done online training for that. I think it's more about educating the clients and their staff more than trying to quote for constantly doing cleanups.
Okay, we have another question from Farron Adamson, who says, are your prices set up for annual cost?
Yeah, they're an annual cost. I know in the software marks, the default, if you look at any of them, if you look at any of the models well, if you look at the bookkeeping one, for instance, I can't find it, but if you go into any of the models and the packages are basically normally expressed payments over 10 months. So although it's an annual service, the payments expressed over 10 months. However, if you're taking on a client that's year end has already passed, the idea is you're going to collect your money effectively. We try to do it so that the 10 months would be 10 months before 8 months before the year end and 2 months after the year end, on the basis we're going to have their accounts completed for 2 months after the year end. We took on a new engineering business a couple of months ago who were behind with their accounts, and the year end had already gone, so we agreed with them that they would make the payment just over two payments, and then we would put another plan in place for their current year, which is 31st of August 2022. So yeah, so the payments you've got to be flexible, or if to be sensible and commercial for your own business, you have to be flexible on your arrangements. Never get into the position where you're being paid in arrears after you've done the work. So if you're in the UK and you're using Go Cardless, which is a brilliant system, very reasonable. I know there's others around like Stripe and various other payment systems. Use those, but make sure your payment plan that you express in the effective pricing, reflects commercial reality for your own business.
Okay, we have another question from Farron again, who says, when you go through this process live with your client, do you have an agenda to follow along with?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, we tend to use the brochures that Mark has provided for VPA members, and we've taken all those brochures and we have put them into our own branding and edited the wording slightly. So my digital marketing coordinator girl in the Philippines, she does all that for us. So she's just done 2 more actually, which we'd never done before, which was one on cleanup, which I've still got to review, and I forget what the other one's on, but might be the one on incorporation. So but we basically have a brochure for virtually any service, and Mark does also provide training as part of VPA called, and I think it's called How to Write a Brochure for Any Service, or something along those lines. So he's got a model where you can produce a brochure whatever the service. So for instance, we don't have a brochure for doing an Innovate UK grant claim, but if I followed Mark's training, I could put one into Word format, and then ICE could produce it for me in Canva with all of our branding into a proper brochure. So, but it's basically Mark's training says use the brochure to sell to the client, and then once you've gone through it with the client and they said, well, I want the Premier service, or I want the the full service or the basic service, you then take them into effective pricing and go through the model there. But they've already seen what all the options are in the brochure. So the brochure is very much a selling tool. We've had interesting debates as to whether we should use it as a marketing tool as well. Because in the early days, we had about 3 or 4 of the brochures actually printed. So we've still got hundreds of copies of these printed copies of the brochures that just sit there doing nothing. So we've just been talking about actually sending them out as mail shots as to our contacts, so that we actually utilize them. Some of the team have changed, unfortunately, on the back cover, but nobody's going to know that just for a change of face. So yeah, we use them basically as a selling tool. And it forms the agenda.
Okay, I think that's it for questions, Rennie, and we're about time, so I'll just leave it for you to wrap up.
Yep, so I think Emily's going to put a feedback form in the chat, so it'd be grateful if you could give me any feedback, good or bad, and obviously then Mark and Emily and Sarah will feed that back to me. And I know there's further sessions to come in the next few weeks. There's 3 other trainers. They're all US based. I think I'm the only one in the UK, so either I got the short straw, or being in the UK I was selected first, but I don't know. So anyway, I hope you found it useful, and thank you very much.